We have now come to the final part of our program, the panel discussion. Our moderator for the panel discussion this afternoon is Ms. Koo Sim Eng, head of our very own minor in film studies at SUSS. I'll pass this session over to Ms. Koo.
Thanks,
Sim
Bing
Eng,
Soon.
please.
Thank you, Bing Soon.
Sure.
And we are at the last 15 minutes. You were supposed to have half an hour. So I think before we go into the Q&A, let me try and wrap things up a little bit. Just to sort of consolidate everything that we've heard with four wonderful and very different topics. I think one of the things that struck me first was the issue of, when it comes to language, I think something that always comes up is adaptation. So when you adapt, and I think Sonia, who has a question which Dawn has been typing forever an answer to, it's a wonderful question. How do you adapt? What do you adapt? What do you leave out? What do you leave in? And how do you translate it into cinematic language? So that's the issue of adaptation. And then it's also the issue of original work. Dawn was talking about the fact that there isn't enough work out there. There isn't enough original work, and we need more scriptwriters, and we do. And one, I'm sure you feel that too. We need more scriptwriters. We need more content in Tamil, in Chinese, in Malay, and even in English. We need more of that. But when you write original content, it's very hard to write original content and sound real. And that's the other issue. How do we sound real in multilingual Singapore, where if you speak English, somebody says, you don't sound Singlish enough, you don't sound Singaporean enough, you sound too atas, or your Malay not good enough, your Tamil not good enough, your Chinese not good enough. It's a big struggle when it comes to writing for local, the market. And also, of course, the issue of money. And that's something which nobody has really raised, but it costs a lot to make a film, to find writers, to create the material. So that's one issue when it comes to writing material for local market. And what struck me, Min Hui, with your topic was, do you remember B.N. Rao to Pontianak, 1957, made by an Indian filmmaker. It's a Malay film, but marketed in Jawi, in Chinese, in the local papers, with subtitles, and even translated into Cantonese.
Dubbed into Cantonese.
Yes, dubbed into Cantonese. And we don't find that anymore. So it's really interesting that earlier in our history, we seem to have been more inclusive in incorporating the various communities and the various dialects. And I think for us, dialect only came back because suddenly we realized that, oh no, we need to put all these messages out to everybody so that all the uncle, auntie, aceh, apek, you know how to go for COVID. So all these issues come into play when it comes to language. So what I want to ask you is, in the little time that we have, is what are the challenges that you ultimately think we can best deal with in Singapore, multilingual, all these sensitivities? I mean, one, working for television, Dawn, working for television, you also have to be aware of what you put on screen. What do you think we can settle best? What do you think we can try to fix?
Is a question addressed to me?
Everyone, all of you. But Dawn,
okay.
You've been typing to Sonia for the longest
No,
time.
because
I think the answer is more solidified in your mind.
Yeah, Sonia had asked me so much of questions.
I know.
And I realized the first question itself, I ran out of space. So it ended off halfway. So I didn't know what to do, so I just deleted it. Sorry, Sonia.
How do you adapt? How do you adapt the text? And everybody jump in as well. How do you adapt the text for the local community? Let's start with that first.
Okay, so I think just a bit of background. I think from MediaCorp side, I think there has been a conscious effort all across. I'm not sure so much about Suria, maybe one might know, but at least from Channel 5 and Vasundam, based on the briefs that they give us to creatives, it's like they want to incorporate quite a bit more of text to screen. So actually that's how the last project, Marma Mede, came about, and Ada Kavita Nasang, the other example. There's a second season that's coming up, and for the good or the better, I'm also involved in that. But the thing is, that aside, I think in terms of, even though we want to talk about adapting stuff, I think there needs to be this openness in accepting a wider range of work, especially at this point of time. And I would want to say, maybe I would just direct this more into television, because I think television, in a way, very crudely, it is being a sunset business here. It is a sunset business in a way, because of course things adjusted with COVID because a lot of us are staying home. But accessibility, we are a Netflix generation now. We are OTT generation now. My parents are not even watching what I'm doing, right? They are watching everything on their broadband, and it's a sad reality. But then, as creators, we do not have the time to sit down and think, how am I going to win her back? Because they have the access. And so I think it's also the openness to accept that we can't just do, okay, sometimes we fall into this category, okay, we just need to kind of redo something that is out there, like a heist. At the end of the day, we are not even trained to do something like that. So these are the restrictions we get. I think there are creators who want to create that's fine. But I think broadcast on TV need to be more open to things that will allow us to bring back the audience in the sense of more honest work. And more honest work would be then going back to a lot of our basics. Actually, we had these works back then. We had, when I remember, there was this Singapore short story project that was in prime. I was very young then. I think I was a child, and I was so drawn into it. This was prime 12 days. And where are all these now? It's like, when I want on the TV now, we just see works of cheaper versions of heist and thrillers. But at the end of the day, we also do not have the budgets to do it. So that's how we are just losing the audience back there. I think when we say literary or adapted works, I mean, I think the debate also goes to like, how many of us locals are even reading local books as well. So I think this is also transformed into screen. We have lost quite a bit of people. I think we need, to me, if you ask me personally, I think we need to go back and reevaluate and creating stuff which are more honest in the system. And I think adapting would be a easier way, in a sense that there's a lot of history, there's a lot of culture, and how do we adapt that back into it? Yeah. I'm not sure whether I answered the question, but I think it just came out right from my heart.
Yeah, thank you. One, do you feel that there's an issue as well when you're writing for Surya? Do you guys do a lot of, you started off with adaptations probably. And the funny thing is that in Singapore, that we don't take much pride in our own adaptations, neither our local film or our local lit. And it pains me because like a country like France, for example, the amount of viewership for local content is much, much stronger. Of course, the issue for some people is that they say the content isn't good enough, which is a very sensitive topic. Oh.
Yeah. I would say that I would just want to respond a little bit to what Don mentioned. He mentioned about TV being a sunset industry. I would want to see it slightly differently, that we are all content creators. If it doesn't, it doesn't go on the TV, it could go on another digital platform, and that is another form of TV, and being in an age where Netflix content is very prevalent, I think the viewers are very discerning. They are very inclusive. They are exposed to content of different cultures and different languages and all that. But I think at the same time, they need to be very much aware of our own culture, our own language. And Don said it perfectly. I think the best stories to tell are our stories, That's how we would stand out in the global market, for example. For our voices to be heard, or for our stories to be told to audience overseas. Yeah.
Khan, I just wanted to ask you to pipe up here. Do you think that because you were speaking not on a verbal language so much as you're speaking on a visual language, do you think that ultimately the way to go is to make a film without dialogue? Would that kill us all, or would that be the way to save us? That we just add in our own. I'm being provocative, and we add in our own dialogue in our own languages.
No, of course, that would imply that just visual language is kind of like the higher art, or greater value, which is not the case at all. I mean, what I was thinking is that this is going to be a downer in my answer. I feel that we have quite systemic contempt towards art in our society. Should I say more? I had an experience where my son went to SOTA. He got in, and the first time the then principal addressed the parents on the first day of school, and this person said, "Don't worry, parents. Even though your kids are in School of the Arts, they're not here to play. Right? We have graduates who have already gone on to study medicine, engineering, and it's." Hang
on, this is the principal of the School of the Arts.
Yes. So, that's just one of many examples. We don't have time to share about all the experiences that we've had collectively about how art, unless you can make money from it, it's frowned upon. There's a bit of contempt. And so it's hard for us to make films openly. Very often there are demands, as Dawn mentioned. You cannot make films by committee, And Singapore, we're also very risk adverse. I said my answer was going to be a downer, right? Singapore, we're very risk adverse, which is, on one hand, it's very good. We've performed so well on the global scale in so many of these rankings. It's because of that, because we're so good with managing risk. But when it comes to art and film business, it's actually a gamble. Even the most successful filmmakers will tell you that there's no guarantee that if they do everything right, their films are going to make money or their programs are going to make money. Netflix and all these streaming services, all a gamble. So are we able to stomach that kind of risk taking? I seriously doubt it.
Okay, thank you.
Should I end on a high? But we just keep making. I'm a film enthusiast. I love this art form. Yes. I keep experimenting. Whenever there's an opportunity, I'll make a film. You got to be in it for the love of it. That has to be your primary driver. And then you'll be surprised the kind of opportunities that open up for you.
I think that is the question. That is the issue in the end, right? We do it because we love it, and we have to keep doing it. Even if people don't want to watch, we'll have to keep doing it anyway. Min Hui, do you think we should start putting all our posters in multiple languages? I mean, I just have an example, Apprentice, made by Bu Jun Feng. It's a wonderful, wonderful film. And nobody knew about it, until it won an award. And then even then, they was like, oh, it's a Malay film. I'm not going to watch a Malay film. Do you think it would have been better if we had advertised it in the Chinese papers or something like that?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be able to comment on the industrial, workings of things because there are many intricacies involved, case-to-case basis. But I might want to, in response to your question, pose a perhaps unpopular opinion. In a sense that I think this question can be reframed into, if we use different languages in publicity today, is it just a waste of resources given our high literacy rate in English language today, right? Because there was a need for multilingual promotional materials maybe 80s, right? Before our education system really became standardized and then and stuff like that. So is it just tokenism today if we, put 4 different or more languages on promotional materials and promote it, to different linguistic communities? But I think my unpopular opinion is, does symbolism really have to always be synonymous with tokenism, right? Is it wrong to, just look at it in terms of symbolic value, to put it there in terms of putting in the extra labor and the extra investment, the extra space to really still make a point in putting it there.
Anybody
I
wants
want
to?
I want to jump in.
Yes,
I
please
want to
do.
jump in with a quick optimistic view. Even though it feels like, by the way, now gaming has been for some time, gaming has overtaken film as being the big money maker. Someone was asking just now in the questions, what is the result of everybody watching content on a smaller screen? And for me, it's our attention spans have gotten shorter, right? Not all of us, but many, especially the millennials. And multitasking, right? People are opening up many browsers to do several things at once. But also, the other thing I was going to say was the interactivity. So because the screens are smaller, we have shorter attention spans. What the media companies have done is they put more interactivity to capture our attention once again. So for example, YouTube, a lot of people watch YouTubes. All of us watch YouTubes, not just because you watch the video, but you can read the comments. You can type your comments. It's that interactivity that manages to capture our attention again. So gaming is another example, right? Gaming is like visual storytelling, borrowing so much from cinema, but then you have the interactive element, you're a participant. I was going to say that we know that film, television, local stuff is in danger of dying out, right? It will not completely die out. It may go the way of theater. There will always be content in the theater, but there will be something more popular. But you think about food. We know that our local food is never going to die out. There's no danger of that, and you cannot make food by committee. You cannot say, let's produce a really good Malay, Indian, Chinese dish that is healthy in all respects. You can't make it by committee because it will not be successful. So we have to go the way of our food culture. We've all heard stories where in the early days, you're running out of ingredients, you borrow the spices from the Indians, you borrow it, from different cultures and you mix it all together. And that's our food culture. It was born authentically, organically. And that's what we have to do with our content. It has to be authentic and it has to be made out of individual expression, not by committee.
I like that. We're at 5 o'clock, but I've been told we get overrun by a few minutes. So do we just have a final comment from the speakers, Dawn and Minhui and Wan? Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I saw one of the responses from the audience saying that he or she, it's anonymous, he or she would love to write again in native language, but he or she don't know how. The person doesn't know how. So I think the first step, that is a good first step. The consciousness that in using the language, and I think that can take you to places. You will start reading materials, our books, or watching materials which is in the language, and you can start from there. And I think that would be an experience, a journey on its own. Yeah, in discovering yourself again.
Thanks, Wan. Dawn?
I think it was the same person would say. I think language need not be a barrier to screenwriting. I think there is a misconception that that language is. In fact, when I was doing my first Chinese drama, I didn't know it was even in Chinese. They gave me a script and then it was complete English and I agreed to do it. And then after they told me it was in Chinese. And I even during the script, after a while, I just knew what they were talking about. And it actually helped me because I did not be bothered about the language. I mean, I had an assistant who took care of the language. But I think in terms of film itself by a language, I don't think we need to put the actual language as a barrier. It's a total different form by itself. Of course, it's complementary by itself. There is a complementary nature, but I think for screenwriting, it's a different dimension. And I don't think we need to play the knowledge of the language as per now, because dialogues usually can be written by someone else. It can be translated. So English, if you know it, then you just have to go into the world of whatever that you are tasked or you need to write, kind of thing. So I think that person, I think she's anonymous. Yeah, she should reach out and she can try.
I think the point here is, I think language is an enabler, and it is something that is creative, and it's something for communication, and we should be the first ones to make use of it and to play with it and to write, to read more local lit, to watch more local films, and start making our own as well, isn't it? Yeah, and not be afraid. Min Hui, what do you want? Any final comments?
I think I'll perhaps leave with an opinion as well, to respond to maybe the earlier question that you had. You asked about what do you hope to see moving forward. I think one very practical thing that I hope to see and that can actually be implemented would be a reconsideration or review of the official regulations for dialect screenings, the regulations for dubbing. It really doesn't do the artistic work justice at all when you dub over something for official reasons, right? And also like to bring in the recent case of Wong Kar-wai retrospective. I think that presents a very good example on why this policy should be reviewed at this moment, right? It's just not relevant at all anymore. So just a little bit of background, it's a lot of people, in short, want to watch the Wong Kar-wai retrospective, and this is another story in itself, like the popularity of Wong Kar-wai in Singapore. But anyway, so it crashed the system, and one of the reasons why it can only be sold in such small quantities in a venue like Odeon Theatre is also because it's difficult for bigger venues to distribute this because of regulations and stuff like that, because it's in dialect, it's in Cantonese, right? So I think this is overdue, a review, and I hope to see that in near future.
Yeah, there is a hunger. I think there is. And in fact, before we end, there's one question which I feel we must answer. Someone has asked, is there such a thing as a calling to being a screenwriter? I often have random scenes playing in my head, interactions between different characters, and I pen it down a notes app on my phone. Sometimes I even dream about such scenes. Is there a calling? Do we want people like this? Yes. Where do they go? Where do they go?
Yeah, I mean, it all boils down to passion. I mean, for me, I started with learning the craft on the job. So sometimes it is just the drive and the passion that brings and pulls you through. So if it's a calling to actually start a journey, then that is a beginning of probably a long, fruitful journey. Yeah.
In other words, go out there and write your heart out.
Yes, yeah. Just do it.
Yes. And we go Nike. And I want to thank the speakers. And Khan, I didn't ask you because you started this ball rolling with your wonderful comment.
We have come to the end of the session. Thank you very much, Sim Eng, and all our distinguished speakers for giving us really a lot of brain food for thought, and for your time and insights as well. We have now come to the end of the forum, and we hope that you have all enjoyed yourselves, both the participants as well as the presenters. We certainly have, and we would like to wish you a very good evening. And once again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for having the afternoon with us, and we look forward to seeing you in our next forum. Thank you once again. All the very best for the year.